Have you ever wondered why a woman who once admired you now looks at you with contempt? Not anger, not disappointment. Contempt. That subtle curl of her lip, that long blink of indifference, that tone that says, "You used to be someone. You don't know what changed. You didn't cheat. You didn't yell. You were loyal, patient, thoughtful. You tried harder, and every time she pulled away, you did more, gave more, softened more. You believed it was the right thing to be accommodating, open, emotionally available. And yet, every act of kindness made her colder. Every apology made her more distant. Every time you tried to connect, she seemed more disgusted by the man you were becoming. You thought love was about proving you were safe, and now you're wondering why being safe made her stop desiring you. Let's call it what it is. You lost power, not because she stole it, not because she's evil, but because you handed it away inch by inch, in 100 invisible moments. You lost power when you said yes while your gut screamed no, when you explained yourself over and over, hoping she'd finally understand, when you tolerated disrespect because you didn't want to seem insecure. You lost power the moment you made her the judge of your worth and tried to earn her approval like a nervous student in front of a disinterested teacher. And she felt it. Women feel it before they can even name it. When a man disconnects from his center, from his boundary, from his direction, they feel it. Not with logic, but with instinct. And that's when something primal shifts. She doesn't feel held. She doesn't feel his gravity. She doesn't feel the current that once pulled her in. Now, she has to lead emotionally, mentally, sometimes sexually, and she resents it. She doesn't want to mother her man. She doesn't want to be the only one strong enough to say no. She wants to feel a force stronger than her own chaos. And when she can't feel that, she tests you. You think she's just emotional, or overwhelmed, or hurt. So you comfort her, reassure her, explain yourself more gently. And each time, she looks a little less impressed. Because the more you try to stabilize her emotions instead of anchoring your own, the more she senses weakness. It's not your softness that loses her, it's your collapse. The quiet emotional surrender that says, "Tell me who to be so you'll stay." You think this is connection? It's not. It's submission disguised as empathy. And the worst part is, she won't tell you she's losing respect. Most women won't. They'll just get colder, shorter, quieter, more sarcastic, more flirty with other men. Not always physically, but emotionally pulling away to see if you'll chase. And you do. You chase with gifts, with long texts, with deep talks she didn't ask for. You chase with your heart in your hands, thinking it's noble to be vulnerable. But vulnerability without boundaries is not strength. It's exposure. It's a self-inflicted wound you hope she'll bandage with affection. And she won't. She'll recoil. Because no woman wants to feel responsible for your sense of worth. She may have liked you because you were firm, grounded, ambitious. But the moment you started looking at her like a savior, like the emotional oxygen to your identity, she knew she was dating a man who forgot who he was. And here's the truth. Women don't fall out of love overnight. They drift, slowly, silently, through every moment you betrayed your instincts just to keep her happy, through every time you didn't call her out when she crossed a line, through every time you said it's fine when it wasn't. She watches, she waits, she even gives you chances to rise, but if you won't lead, she won't follow. And eventually, her tests get harder, colder, crueler, not always consciously, but emotionally. She needs to know, are you still the man she chose? Are you still the man who could walk away if she disrespects you? Are you still the man who has something bigger than her validation driving his life? And when she sees you're not, when she sees you're too afraid to risk losing her, she knows she already lost you. Because the moment your fear of losing her became greater than your commitment to your truth, she saw the boy behind the mask. The boy who never learned how to hold his own boundary. You didn't just lose her, you lost yourself in front of her. Now you're stuck in the loop. You overthink every text. You wait longer before responding, hoping she'll notice your absence. You Google how to re-attract a woman. You try to act high value, but deep down you're panicking because she's pulling away and you have no idea why. What you don't realize is that she already noticed. She noticed the hesitation in your voice, the way you avoid conflict, the way your spine slightly folds when she gives you that look, the one that says, "Try harder." She noticed when your opinions started sounding more like hers, when you stopped challenging her, when you started asking what she wanted for dinner every single night. It doesn't seem like a big deal. To you, it looks like respect, equality, emotional maturity, but to her primal brain, it's threat detection. Women are biologically attuned to sense when a man no longer holds frame, when he starts orbiting her moods instead of commanding his world. She tests you because she wants to feel something real from you. Not words, not affection, not promises, but presence. The kind of presence that doesn't flinch when she's moody, that doesn't break when she's distant, that doesn't chase every emotional gust like a leaf in a storm. She doesn't want you to fix her. She wants to feel you grounded, unaffected, sovereign. But instead, you try to manage her. You tiptoe around her emotions. You go quiet when she's passive-aggressive. You over-apologize when she accuses you of not caring. You go into damage control mode, and that's when it gets worse. Because now, you're confirming her fear that you're not a man who can hold tension, that you're not a man who can say, enough, that you'll let her moods dictate your self-worth. She doesn't need you to be perfect. She needs you to be rooted. She needs to feel your internal no as clearly as your external yes. And when she doesn't, when every little push from her gets met with a compromise, a backpedal, a softened edge, she doesn't feel safe. Yes, safe, not from you, but in you. Because emotional safety for a woman isn't about how gentle you are. It's about how solid you are, how clear your edges are, how willing you are to be disliked for standing your ground. That's what creates polarity. That's what generates desire. But you gave it up. Maybe slowly, maybe all at once. You started bending, adapting, eroding your own values in the name of harmony. You told yourself you were being mature, that it's what healthy men do. But that wasn't maturity. That was fear wearing a therapist's vocabulary. You were afraid to disappoint her, afraid to make her cry, afraid to be the reason she got upset. So you silenced your instincts, suppressed your standards, pacified her chaos instead of anchoring your own clarity. And that's when she lost attraction. Not because you were cruel, not because you were abusive, but because you became emotionally dependent. And emotional dependence is the quickest way to annihilate polarity. It makes you clingy, reactive, overly concerned with her opinions. You become a mirror, not a man, reflecting her emotions instead of expressing your own. You stop leading, you start performing. And here's the twist: she knows what you're doing. She might not say it, but she can feel it. She can feel when your compliment is really a plea for validation. She can feel when your long, emotional message is just a test. Will she say something sweet back? She can feel when your silence isn't grounded, it's punishment. She can feel when you're no longer being real. And once she feels that, once she sees that your power isn't internal, but conditional on her approval, she disconnects. You'll hear her say things like, "You've changed. I just need space. I don't feel the same anymore." What she means is, you gave me too much control, and I lost respect. You thought love was about becoming softer, but in reality, it was about becoming sharper, clearer, not colder, not harder, but more defined. Because here's the truth: No one told you if you want to be loved as a man, you have to be willing to be hated. You have to risk rejection. You have to be ready to walk away when your integrity is violated, no matter how beautiful she is, no matter how deep the history goes. Not because you want to, but because you have to. Because the moment you lose your line, you lose her heart. And it starts early, long before she says a word, long before the first argument, before the first silent treatment. It starts the moment you look at her like she has something you don't, like her attention is a prize, like her beauty is currency, and whether you admit it or not, you put her on a pedestal, not by choice, but by programming. You were taught to admire beauty, to protect it, to worship it. You were raised to be the gentleman, the provider, the appeaser, and you carried that script into adulthood, thinking that being endlessly agreeable was the path to her heart. But deep down, she doesn't want a servant. She doesn't want a fan. She wants a man. And the moment she senses that her smile can control your actions, she tests it. She cancels plans last minute. She flirts with another guy in front of you. She talks about her ex a little too fondly. Not because she's cruel, but because she wants to know if there's a line she can't cross. And if there isn't, if you smile through it, laugh nervously, pretend it doesn't bother you, she realizes something: your desire is stronger than your self-respect. And that's when she loses interest. Because a man who can't protect his own dignity can't protect hers. And women, consciously or not, want to feel protected, not with fists, but with presence, with boundaries, with the quiet confidence of a man who doesn't need her, even if he wants her. But you kept giving, kept smiling, kept bending. You thought, if I just show her how good I am, she'll stay. If I just keep being the nice guy, she'll see I'm different. No, she won't. Because in her world, being good without backbone doesn't make you safe. It makes you disposable. It makes you boring, predictable, easy to control. And once she knows she can control you, she stops feeling the polarity that keeps desire alive. She needs to feel your edge, your independence, your willingness to lose her rather than betray yourself. And you need to feel it too. You need to remember what it feels like to not care if she's impressed, to not beg for another chance, to not explain yourself to someone who already made up their mind. You need to reclaim the part of you that can look a woman dead in the eye and say, I'm not for sale. Because the truth is, most men are. They sell their boundaries for affection, their opinions for approval, their time, attention, values, all in the hope of being chosen. And then they wonder why the woman stops respecting them. It's not because you were too loving, it's because your love came with fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being disliked, fear of being misunderstood. And women smell that fear. They smell it when you hesitate to speak up. They smell it when you change your mind to match theirs. They smell it when your compliments are laced with desperation. They smell it when you ask, is that okay, too often? You think you're being kind, but in her gut, it feels like weakness. And here's where it gets dangerous the moment you lose your power. She doesn't just lose respect. She loses safety. She loses polarity. She loses that internal click that says, this man can hold me. So she tests more. And the tests aren't always obvious. Sometimes they come as emotional withdrawals. Sometimes as criticism. Sometimes as sudden silence. But behind each one is the same question: are you still the man? Not the man with the car, or the job, or the looks, but the man with the spine. And most men fail the test, not because they're weak, but because they were trained to prioritize comfort over truth, approval over boundaries, peace over power, and it destroys them, quietly, slowly, like a leak in a boat they didn't know was sinking. You don't even realize it at first. You just feel tired, on edge, confused. You can't explain why you feel like you're walking on eggshells around someone you're supposed to love. You think the answer is to talk more, open up, share your feelings. But the answer isn't more talking, it's less betraying. It's remembering who you were before you thought love meant obedience. Because if she can see that you're willing to stand alone, that you're willing to lose her rather than lose yourself, then she might finally feel what she's been testing for all along. That you're not a boy hoping to be picked. You're a man who picks himself. And that's when everything changes. Not when you win her back. Not when she texts you first. Not when she finally shows you the affection you've been begging for in silence. No, it changes when you stop caring, if she does. Because once you stop being emotionally reactive to her every move, you regain the power you gave away. And it doesn't come from pretending. It comes from seeing clearly, from seeing how easily you gave your sense of worth to someone who was never supposed to hold it. You didn't lose her because you weren't enough. You lost her because you made her too much. You crowned her your reason, your anchor, your light, and in doing so, you stripped yourself of the masculine gravity that first drew her in. That's the paradox. The moment you make her your purpose, she becomes repelled. Not because she doesn't want love, but because she doesn't want to be worshipped. She wants to feel your presence, not your emotional dependence. So what does it look like to regain your center? It looks like silence. Real silence. Not the kind that waits for her to notice you're mad. The kind that doesn't need to explain. The kind that walks away from the game because the rules were written to keep you chasing. It looks like saying no and meaning it. Without guilt. Without apology. Without over-explaining your decision just to keep the peace. It looks like watching her mood shift and staying calm. Watching her flirt and staying grounded. Watching her test you and choosing not to perform. It looks like remembering her affection is not oxygen. Her approval is not a mirror. Her love is not proof of your value. That's how you reclaim power, not by dominating, not by controlling, not by manipulating, but by refusing to collapse. Because that's what power is. Not noise, not anger, not ego, but stillness, direction, knowing. And most men have never tasted it. You've tasted approval, you've tasted affection, you've tasted the high of being wanted. But have you ever tasted the raw, grounded calm of knowing who you are even when she pulls away? That's when you become unshakable. When you stop asking, what should I do to win her back? And start asking, what have I abandoned in myself to keep her? It's a hard question, because the answers are brutal. You'll see the nights you stayed in when you didn't want to, the fake laughs, the softened opinions, the compliments you gave that felt like currency, the rage you swallowed to seem composed, the standards you dropped so you wouldn't seem controlling, the disrespect you tolerated just to keep the peace. You didn't lose her, you abandoned yourself, and she just followed the energy. Because a woman doesn't leave the man who holds himself with reverence. She might disagree, she might challenge him, but she can't walk away from the current of real, masculine presence. She can't forget how it feels to be near a man who knows himself, but she will run from the man who keeps asking who he needs to become to make her happy. So stop asking, stop chasing, stop rewriting yourself to fit the shifting moods of someone who doesn't even know what she wants. And ask yourself, who am I without her gaze, without her validation, without her softness or coldness or silence or seduction? If the answer is empty, then you have work to do. Not to win her back, but to build a man she can never manipulate again. Not because you're immune to love, but because you've become immune to the lie that love is earned through sacrifice. It's not real love, the kind that awakens you only comes when you've drawn the line and said, this is where I end. You don't cross it. Not even you. That line is your power. That line is your worth. That line is what tells her and you that your soul is not for sale. That you are not afraid to lose a woman who makes you lose yourself. That you are no longer the man who begs to be chosen. Because you've already chosen. You chose you. And now, everything she used to ignore, she notices. Your silence isn't passive anymore, it's potent. Your boundaries aren't defensive, they're defining. Your presence doesn't chase it, commands. Because when a man stops negotiating his worth, people feel it. She feels it. The tension in her test returns, but this time, you don't move. You don't explain. You don't collapse. You simply watch. And in that stillness, she realizes something. You're no longer reacting to her power. You're standing in your own. This isn't revenge. This isn't strategy. This is the raw return to a self you buried beneath the illusion that love means self-erasure. And now, with nothing left to prove, you walk different. You speak less. You wait longer. Not as punishment, but because your time is sacred again. You're not afraid of her leaving. You're afraid of betraying yourself. And that shift, it changes everything. Because when you're no longer the man who needs her to behave a certain way, to be sweet, available, constant, she starts to see you again. Not the soft version, not the performative version, not the emotionally edited version. You, the man who doesn't beg, the man who doesn't chase chaos, the man who doesn't hand his dignity over to anyone. No matter how beautiful, how emotional, how seductive, you become the storm she can't shake, not because you're loud, but because you're centered. And here's what might happen. She'll try again. She'll test again. She'll throw the same patterns at you that used to work: the tears, the silence, the flirtation with other men, the emotional guilt trip. But this time, you don't fold, you don't get angry, you don't get cold, you just stay rooted. Because now you understand the only reason you lost power in front of her was because you kept trying to earn something that should have been given to yourself. Respect, trust, leadership, peace. All the things you thought she was withholding you were the one who abandoned them. And that's the awakening. It doesn't come in a loud moment. It comes in the quiet, knowing I don't need her to return for me to reclaim myself. That's the ultimate shift. When you realize you were never broken, you were just asleep, walking through the motions, playing the game, hoping that if you just loved hard enough, gave long enough, tolerated deep enough, she would finally see you. But that's over now. You don't need to be seen. You need to see. You need to look in the mirror and finally recognize that the power you thought she stole was power you gave away. And when you stop giving it away, something terrifying happens. You become alone with yourself. No more hiding behind her moods. No more blaming her silence. No more chasing her confusion to avoid facing your own. You stand there stripped of all the performances, all the tactics, all the people-pleasing, just you. And that moment will scare you, because it's quiet, it's still, it's real. But stay there. Don't run, don't numb, don't go looking for the next woman to distract you. Don't dive back into the fantasy of maybe if I had just said this, done that, been more patient. Because the lesson isn't about her, it never was. The lesson is this. A man loses power in front of a woman the moment he places her above his own sense of self. And he regains it the moment he no longer needs her to see him to remember who he is. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.